Hello everyone, and welcome to my new YouTube channel. I'm gonna create a few videos about investing and personal finances. The reason I decided to do it is because I simply like talking about investing, and also because I just wanted to share it with others, and hopefully it will be useful to somebody out there. I'm sure a lot of you realize that, I'm sure a lot of you had experience that our schools don't really talk about personal finances much, and especially about investing. And I think that's very important. Me personally, my own parents never taught me about it, and I honestly wish I would have done it long time ago. Just so you know, I actually started investing about 4 years ago. I always tell my friends and everybody that I wish I would have started doing it 20 years ago, because by now I would have already been retired. And yes, I realized that back then I didn't make as much money working, for $5 an hour washing dishes in a restaurant at 19. But still, it's not about the amount you put into it, it's about compound interest. And compound interest, it's a very powerful thing. I have a quote from Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein famously said that compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. He said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. Who doesn't, pays it. And it's true. When it comes to investing for retirement and for your financial security, it's actually not about how much you invest, it's how early you start. And that's very important. Now, there are different ways to invest. Some people buy growth stocks. Basically, that means stocks that usually go up in price, and they try to make money by selling the stocks for a higher price. Some simply invest into mutual funds, which is basically a fund where multiple people put in the money and it's managed by a professional. For the last, 10 years or so, index funds became very popular, and for a good reason. Because believe it or not, over 90% of mutual fund managers cannot outperform simple index. Which kind of makes no sense, right? Because if you think about it, those are the people who get paid millions of dollars and have hundreds of people working for them, doing research, and they cannot outperform simple index. Which means basically if you throw the money blindly into index, you actually will do better than 9 out of 10 mutual fund managers. And there's different theories about it. The one I think is correct is that basically if you're a fund manager, it's hard to take a risk, right? It's hard to do something different than everybody else does. Just imagine this for a second. If something goes wrong, right? Let's say the market drops, economy is bad. Nobody's going to complain that you made the same choices that 8 out of 10 other fund managers did. On the other hand, if you actually try to do something different, took a chance, and it didn't work out, the first question will be, why didn't you do what everybody else did? So I think it's actually a lot easier to be a successful investor yourself. Even though on the surface it makes no sense, because how can you be more successful than somebody who does it for a living? Because I think we as individuals have the power to make our own choices, to pick the stocks based on our beliefs and what we want to do, because we don't feel a pressure, for example, to perform very well every single year. We, for example, can think of, okay, we're doing it for the long term. What do I want? Which stocks do I want for the long term? It doesn't matter if today it's going to drop a little bit or this year it's not going to do very well. We don't actually have to answer to anybody except ourselves. And we know our goal. I personally like very much investing in dividend stocks. And I will explain to you why. Imagine for a second, you've been investing either into the mutual fund or index fund, and you're doing very well. Your stocks are up a lot, and you're planning on retiring. A lot of financial books tell us to, if you're close to retirement, a few years before that, move your funds out of risky investments and put them into something safe, like government bonds, for example. That's great. There is a problem with that thinking, though. We all know that stocks go up and down. We all know about recessions, which basically happen because of the free market economy and the way it works. For a while, things are good. There is a demand. There is a lot of production, so lots of people employed. Eventually, demand drops. People lose their jobs, and we go into recession. And it's like this, up and down all the time. The most famous recession was between 1929 and 1932. It was known as the Great Depression. I'm sure we all heard about it. In 3 years, the stock dropped over 90%. So it lost 90% of its value. And it took 25 years for the stock market to recover. So just think about it for a second. Let's say you're ready to retire in a few years. 3-4 years you're ready to retire. And based on, what the financial books tell you, you're going to wait until it's 2 years. And you're going to move your funds out of the stocks of companies into something more safer, like mutual funds. Let's say you're doing very well and your stocks are up a lot and you're planning to retire now. Let's say you're 50 years old and you know that in another 3 years you're going to retire because you did very, very well in the stock market. But now, all of a sudden, your stocks are dropped. And the same thing happened during Great Depression. Are you willing to wait 23, 24 years for your stocks to get back to the point where they were? Are you going to wait until you're 75 to retire? When literally a few years before that, you were planning to retire when you're 50. And this is where I see the problem with investing based on the value of the stocks. Because stocks fluctuate. The value of the stocks quite often has nothing to do with how well the company is doing financially. Quite often, it's a general recession, general panic in the market, and all the stocks are dropping. Just to give you an example, recently, back in April, when COVID-19 epidemic, everyone's panicking and the stock market dropped 37%. Every single company dropped. For example, Johnson & Johnson, which is a dividend aristocrat, dropped as well. Something like 22%, I believe. But when you actually look at their financial statements, there is simply no reason for it. A lot of companies, yes, they were not making profits all of a sudden, money were not coming in. Companies like real estate, malls, yes, all of a sudden they're not getting paid. On the other hand, Johnson & Johnson, there is literally, it didn't affect it. If anything, they're actually they're making drugs, pharmaceuticals, they're going to be working on the vaccine. If anything, they're actually going to make even more money. And they actually increased their dividend by 6.3% back in April. So everybody's stocks are dropping. A lot of companies cutting their dividends because they simply don't have money coming in to pay the dividends. Yet Johnson & Johnson increasing their dividend by 6%. And their stock is dropping. So this is where my strategy comes in. I don't actually care about the value of the stock. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a passive income based on the dividend. To me, it doesn't matter. Is the stock today $100 or is it $50? Actually, to be honest with you, I want the stock to be lower. And I'll tell you why. Because if the stock is lower, that means when I'm buying it, I'm buying a lot more. If the stock went down half, that means I'm getting twice the amount of stocks. That means I'm getting twice the amount of dividends for the same amount of money. And I love it. When the stocks dropped back in April, honestly, I was excited. I went on a shopping spree and I picked up quite a few good stocks because I knew there is simply no reason for them to go down. Now, a lot of people also worry about investing in stocks, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, we all heard about knowing somebody who lost money in the stock market. And so there's this perception that, nobody knows what it is. You put in money, you may lose it. Well, yes, if you're going to be buying and selling stocks every day, trying to catch the wave, I can see it's happening. Because it's very funny. Usually, to make money, you have to buy something low and sell it high. But when it comes to stock market, people tend to do the opposite. When the stock market goes up, people want to jump on the bandwagon and buy it because it keeps going up. And they have this mentality that it's just going to keep going up. Then when it drops, people start selling. So what often happens is people buy high and they'll sell low. Well, you do that a few times and yeah, you're going to lose money. My approach is different. I don't try to time the market because it's impossible. There's so many variables in it. For example, who could have predicted COVID-19? Nobody, right? Like, you cannot predict those things. You literally cannot predict it. So if you cannot fight it, you might as well join it. So my strategy is based on this. I buy stocks of companies that, first of all, I understand their business. That's very simple. And again, company like Johnson & Johnson, which, by the way, AAA credit rating. There's actually, I think, 2 US companies left that's rated AAA credit. Johnson & Johnson and Microsoft. So I buy companies that pay dividends. And because of that, I don't care if the stock goes down and stays down for 25 years. Who cares? They still paying me money. And so my approach is, I always think, do I want to own this company? Like, I don't care about that. I don't look at the value, like the number. What's the stock cost, for example? I actually think of myself as a part owner. And I'll tell you why. Because we all heard, like, I'm sure we all agree that to really become financially successful, you need to be a company owner. You need to be a business owner. The problem with that is, I read somewhere that 93% of all the companies fail within the first 3 years. So it's actually very hard to become a business owner, to own your own company. So what's the alternative? The alternative would be to purchase piece of company that's already established, that's been around for a long time, and that's profitable. So that's what I do. I look for a company and I think of it. Do I want to own this company? Do I want to be the part owner? Or to even bend your mind around it a little bit more, I'm thinking sometimes this way. Would I be willing to invest all my money into this company? How comfortable do I feel about it? If I wouldn't be able to sell it for the rest of my life, would I be okay owning it? Do I think it will be successful and gonna keep paying me year after year after year? And so that's completely different way of thinking. There is no fast way to riches. If you see a video on YouTube that talks about they're gonna show you in 5 minutes how to make millions of dollars from $100, believe me, they're lying. It's not that easy. But this is a slow and steady process to actually accomplish that. It might take you 5 years, it might take you 10 years, and that's what I'm saying. It's very, very important to start doing it early. And let the compound interest work for you. Like, compound interest is like it's magic. I like to think about it as, I'm sleeping and my little dollars are working and making other dollars. And those dollars making other dollars. And it's multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. You get the idea. I started about 4 years ago. Like, I started very slow because I was scared to lose money, right? I invested literally a couple $100 just to play with it, just to learn. And that's what I did. For a few years, I was literally learning. I made mistakes. And that's how I actually came up with dividend investing strategy. That wasn't right from the beginning. At first, I also tend to maybe buy something that's gonna go up, trying to basically win the lottery. But no, you just lose money. Of course, you can hear about people who invest into some penny stock and get rich. But guess what? You also hear about people who buy a lottery ticket for $1 and win millions. But that doesn't mean that they're actually smart. That doesn't mean that they did something right. They just luck, nothing more. And yes, the same person can do it twice. But guess what? Same person can also win the lottery twice. There are actually numerous cases where a person won the lottery more than once. But for every person that wins the lottery, there's millions who don't win anything. The same with those type of stocks. For every person who actually does guess something and who buys something that makes him money, there is hundreds of thousands who are actually gonna lose the money. And that's why I don't believe in gambling in the stock market. I think you should purchase something that pays you dividend, that you can own it no matter what the stock price is, which you cannot control, and that's gonna pay you money. And if you don't need it right now, this dividend, what you do is you reinvest it. And that's where the compound interest comes in. Because first of all, you can invest in companies that often raise their dividend, as the stock I mentioned, Johnson & Johnson. So they raise it by 6% a year. Well, this year. But on average, that's kind of like what they, if you look at the last 10 years, that's more or less the average that they raise by. So beside the fact that they're raising their dividend, you can be taking this dividend and reinvesting and buying more stocks and adding more money into it as you're working. And so yes, it's all gonna compound, and in 10-15 years, that's it. You made it. And again, what does it mean you made it? Will you be making millions in 10-15 years? Probably not. Depends, how much you're investing and what's happening. And maybe you got lucky, but most likely not. But the income, the passive income that you will be making may actually be enough for you to retire or work part-time or quit your job for half a year, go travel, come back, work for another half year. Like, it's basically gonna add extra income to whatever income you already have. And that's what I'm trying to do. I know I won't be able to make 100,000 a year, for example, from my dividends in 5-10 years, but that's not my goal. My goal is to simply generate extra income to help me be more financially independent, to be more free, to actually enjoy my life, to go travel, do stuff. And who knows, it's possible that I will make more, but to be honest, I'm not even hoping for that. That's not my goal. So I think I'm gonna end this video on that. If you like it, like I said, click the like button, click subscribe, because that would help me with the YouTube algorithm. If you have any questions, just write to me. I'll try to answer them. This is my very first video, so don't be too hard on me. My next video, I'm gonna get into more details on how I actually pick the stocks, what I look for. I also want to share my portfolio, which is basically at this point over $200,000. And yeah, like, I'm gonna try to make at least few videos, and I'm gonna share how I got there. And I honestly think anybody can do this. Thank you very much, and happy investing.